Hello there, poodling around us. I hope life has been full of tranquility and joy since I last spoke to you. On that note, it's tranquility and joy, and all that comes with being a pet parent of a lovable, fluffy, four-legged friend that we're going to talk about today. I'm delighted to be joined by Brian Johnson, who's the dad of a lovable and gorgeous golden retriever called Pip, who you can find on social media, whether he's mooching around or having a tongue-out Tuesday. I somehow found Pip in my feed last year on X and have loved following his adventures ever since. Partly this is because I love golden retrievers, having had one of my own. Well, people always get dogs that resemble themselves, don't they? It's also partly because I deal with a lot of pet-related topics in my PR day job. I have to say that my mood lifts whenever I spot a post from Pip. So let's find out how all of this came about and what being a pet parent really entails. Hello, Brian. First of all, could you tell us a little bit about Pip and when he first joined your family?
Yes, Pip was born on a lovely farm at a village called Sissinghurst in Kent. His mother was the family retriever. The farm actually is adjacent to Sissinghurst Castle, which was the former home of Vita Sackville-West, the author, and the MP Harold Nicholson. So, he was born in a fairly historic and beautiful location. His mother was named after a Tolkien character, and they grow cherries on the farm where he was born. So his birth name was Arwen Samba, and Samba being a type of cherry. And his sisters, I think he had about 6 sisters, they were all Arwen and then another breed of cherry. Funnily enough, the Pip in his name doesn't come from that. That's a coincidence. And there's some debate in the family about how it came about, but I can tell you it's got nothing to do with cherry pips, and it's got nothing to do with Gladys Knight and the Pips. Our elder daughter, she's always been into drama and literature and film and things since she was very little. She now directs plays and musicals. Anyway, Philip Pirrip is the John Mills character in Great Expectations, and he's referred to throughout Dickens's original knowledge and the film as Pip. So that's where we think he got his name.
Yes, that's great, isn't it? Because, Dickens was so prolific around the area that I think you explore quite a lot. There's a good reference there. There's a good sense of place name for your dog, isn't it?
You're right. There's lots of Kent connections around Rochester particularly. So, yes, it's nice that he's got a sort of historic connection. Funnily enough, the farm where he was born, we've discovered that years later they've got a couple of shepherd's huts, and they've called one of the shepherd's huts Pip. Sheer coincidence, but it was a lovely coincidence.
Indeed. And so what are your more usual haunts when you're poodling around with Pip?
Well, we live in Royal Tunbridge Wells in Kent. It's on the Kent and Sussex border. And we're blessed with a really large common that runs almost into the centre of town. And there are lots of parks and things. So he spends a lot of time there. He's a creature of habit, really, and he likes nothing more than walking across the common to the Pantiles, which is a sort of elegant Georgian colonnade of shops and cafes and restaurants and things. So we tend to walk across the common, along the Pantiles, up the high street and back over the common most days. And you'll see those places in our social media posts all the time, really. It means he's made lots of friends along his route, both human and canine, and he just loves meeting them on his travels. So if we try to deviate the route, he'll tug us in the direction he wants to go. My wife and I don't tend to carry treats when we're out and about with him, but he does very well off the people that he meets. A local magazine ran a photo spread of his favourite places a couple of years ago. So since then, we've been recognised by quite a few people as we walk through the town. And that's rather fun. It's quite fun to be recognised. They tend to recognise him from his lead because he's got quite a distinctive sort of stripy rainbow lead. So it's lovely to be stopped, and they sort of come and make a fuss of him, and he enjoys that too.
I have to say, I think he's been a great ambassador for the Pantiles because he poses outside shops, doesn't he? And points out different offers that are going on. So, yeah, he must, he ought to be on the payroll, really, for the local tourism board.
That would be nice, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
I've lived in Tunbridge Wells for most of my life. I have lived away And I love the place. And if we can do something that promotes the town, that's great. We're also quite keen on the local businesses. So, for example, Children's Salon is based in Tunbridge Wells, which is a global children's brand. In Tunbridge Wells, it's just a tiny little shop in the high street, beautiful little shop. And it's great to sort of do a picture there and then tell the story of how the company has developed over the years. So we do quite a lot with interesting local buildings, bits of local history and heritage, and businesses as well.
Mm. And where are your very favourite places to go?
Well, I think many and varied, really. One of them is the Isle of Purbeck. My father lived there for about 30 years. Sadly, he's no longer with us. But our younger daughter has just moved down there from Oxford. She lives well off the beaten track, but it's an area with great beaches, thatched cottages, there's Corfe Castle, steam trains from Swanage, and lots of country walks with wonderful views. So we're down there quite a lot, and he absolutely loves it because there are dogs and horses and deer, lots of interesting walks. And when he's not out, he'll sit in the garden just sort of staring at the downs and the trees and the field. He loves it down there.
Mm. And he's got such a social media presence now, hasn't he? But how did that come about, and what channels are you on?
Funnily enough, it wasn't really our intention to give him a big social media presence. I was working in a job which involved a little bit of informal Twitter, supporting the communications team of the company that I was with. And I left that and took up a fully internal role. And I felt it would be useful to keep my hand in and learn more about Twitter, or X as it is now, and other social media. So on the first day of the Year of the Dog in 2018, I had this bright idea while I was stuck on a late train to set up an account featuring Pip and just run it for the duration of the Year of the Dog. So that was the plan, learn Twitter. And my goodness me, I learnt a lot. But by the end of the year, he had so many followers and there was so much interaction with people from literally all over the world that I hadn't really the heart to kill him off and close the account. So we're still there today. And I guess a couple of years later, our daughters, who weren't really into Twitter, much more into Instagram, decided that he should have an account there. So he's on Instagram as well. And subsequent to that, Threads. So he's got about 26,000 followers, I think, on Twitter, about 4,000 on Instagram, and maybe 8,000 on Threads. And we've played about with Blue Sky and with Spoutable, and he's got sort of a few followers on those as well. We find it great fun because we've met lots of interesting people who've become, if you like, virtual friends. So as well as sort of being recognized locally, we've got to know a lot of people in Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, Canada, the US, South America, across Europe, all of whom have got dogs, and it's been great fun.
Mm. And what I love about your posts is I find them so clever because they've got puns in them, and you take a picture of Pip and you link it to a well-known phrase or a song, don't you? So did that happen from the start, or is that something that's come about over time?
Well, it kind of adds interest rather than just posting a picture. I started out as a journalist, and I've worked as an editor and a sub-editor, which meant writing headlines and punchy captions and things like that. So I've taken that skill, which I wasn't really using in my work at the time, and just to keep sharp on those, really. So I enjoy writing terrible jokes or punning captions, just as I enjoy writing more serious captions about issues that dogs face or people face, or about history and heritage, or just things that are going on around the town. So yeah, he's done that from the start, but I've gradually learned what works and what doesn't. So it's been an educational experience along the way.
Yeah, I think puns need to be used more often, Brian. Nothing
I
wrong
love
with a
them.
good pun. So, how much time do you actually spend on building Pip's profile? I imagine it takes quite a bit of time.
Usually it's the first thing I do when I get up in the morning. I'll make myself a cup of coffee, and we do a couple of posts most days. And if I'm working in London, which I have been up until now, I'll do a couple of posts while I'm on the train. Otherwise, just kind of fit them in during the day as and when I can. It doesn't take as long as you would think, partially because we just take an iPhone with us when we go walking and take pictures. And one of the great things is that both of our daughters take pictures from time to time. And even, my wife, Dawn, she takes photographs as well, which we use. So it's a bit of a family effort. And once in a while, our daughters will come up with some sort of line for a caption. So, yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
Mm. And like you say, you've made so many friends in the Golden Retriever community and I guess beyond the Golden Retriever community as well.
Yes. When I first started Pip's account, I thought this is a brilliant idea. Nobody's ever thought of this before. And then, of course, I discovered that there are hundreds and hundreds of people that have got accounts on Instagram or X for their pets. So, yes, we have met a lot of people. And actually, we've had a couple of incidents with Pip where I wouldn't say that they have necessarily been life-threatening, but they've been really serious. And we've posted questions for people or explained the situation in a Golden Retriever Facebook group. We've talked about it on Twitter and to some extent on Instagram. And the support and encouragement and the value of people's experience that has come to us has been absolutely incredible. He was actually really ill about a year ago, I guess, and we were starting to fear the worst. And then we got so many people posting replies to us saying, we've been through this, just be patient, let's wait and see what happens. Chances are it'll be all right. And I think we were very, very grateful for the support that's given us.
Oh, that sounds really valuable. And does he have doggy friends locally, and who are they?
He does, yes. He's got all sorts of friends that he meets as he's out and about. He's got one particular friend, Watson, that we seem to run into every day. He's a Golden Retriever that we first met on the Ashdown Forest, actually, which is another favourite walking place. It was the home of Winnie the Pooh and Christopher Robin and Piglet and Eeyore and what have you. Coincidentally, he lives in Tunbridge Wells, so we see him several times a week, I think, and they get on well. You tend to get to meet a lot of people through your dogs. You don't necessarily know their names or know them very well, but you know the dogs' names. So you're kind of on nodding and chatting terms with loads of people, and it's really lovely.
I used to work with somebody in London, Brian, who used to refer to that sort of person as part of the Dare family, because you don't know who they are, but you go, oh, hello, Dare.
Yes.
Which always amused me. So was Pip your first dog?
He was, yes. Our younger daughter was absolutely determined that she would have a Golden Retriever, and she launched a campaign that lasted about 3 years. And she tracked down Golden Retrievers all over the place. We went to lots of rescues. We even went to Battersea, actually, and we didn't find a Golden Retriever anywhere. And one day she found the Golden Retriever on the farm at Sissinghurst, and we went along there. And to cut a long story short, the breeder basically auditioned my younger daughter, who had been 11 at the time, and she so convinced her that she would be the perfect owner for Pip that 10 weeks later, Pip moved in with us. And for the first year or two, Pip and my younger daughter were inseparable. She spent all her spare time with him. She trained him, groomed him, and they became great pals, which means that I don't know how to train a dog because it's all been done by my younger daughter. So if we ever have another dog, it's going to be a steep learning curve for me.
Yes. Oh, it sounds like she did a sterling job there then. So have there been any negatives to having a social media channel devoted to Pip?
You occasionally get people that do some strange things or make some unfortunate comments. Because I've worked in the media in the past, I can kind of turn a blind eye and make a view as to whether it's worth making a fuss of some rogue comment that somebody makes or some unkind comment. I remember that there was somebody that kept on saying that Pip was fat and overweight and all the rest of it, which of course he wasn't. But actually, you look at the account and you think, well, they've got, 10 followers or something. Pip's got, at that stage, probably about 5 or 10,000. And you think, well, nobody's going to notice, really. It's not worth doing anything about that. Another thing we've experienced is that the photographs we use were getting copied and used by people who were trying to sell things like T-shirts or whatever, which is why we now put a watermark on all the photographs. And in that instance, we don't want Pip to be associated with some business that we don't know anything about, be it a good business or a bad business. So, we will take steps to get those posts removed. But, these things happen relatively infrequently. And apart from that, it's basically been a joy.
Yeah, I guess there's always somebody out there that you're going to upset in some way, or they just have some issues of their own and you just happen to come into their feed at that point when they've got that issue. So there's nothing you can do about that, really, is there?
It does happen from time to time. We've had something in the region of 20 people setting up accounts that they've called Pip the Golden Retriever, but they all seem to disappear pretty quickly once people start to block them.
Yeah, it's such a shame, isn't it, that has to happen. Now, as you know, I had a Golden Retriever too. I love the breed. What is it that you love about Golden Retrievers?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I didn't know that much about Golden Retrievers apart from a number of our family who live in Scotland have had them over the years. They are the perfect dog if you've got a growing family. They're very gentle, very loyal. They're eager to please. And if you've got children, they just love playing with the children. So Pip actually grew up with our two daughters, both of whom have moved away from home now. But, you can see that bond when we go visiting them or they come home to us. It's just been, as I say, sheer joy.
Yeah. I think you're right. The loyalty and the love that they show is just tremendous, isn't it? They love a good cuddle as well, don't they? Which is great when you want somebody to give you a hug. The Golden Retriever is always there to do that.
They love a bit of attention. And you can see it when you're walking along, the high street or whatever. You can see people smile when they see a Golden Retriever coming towards you. It might be because they look as though they're smiling. Their faces are sort of, they look as though they're smiling as they walk along, and people smile back and people stop and they say, "Do you mind if I say hello to your dog?" I remember once an elderly lady stopped us and said, "Do you mind if I say hello to the dog?" I say, "Yes, that's fine." And I could see that there were tears welling up in her eyes. And it turned out she'd had a Golden Retriever during the Second World War, and it had brought back memories for her.
Yeah. I have to say, when I see one walking along the street, I get tears in my eyes too. Just brings back so many memories. And yeah, I do love to spot one, but it does evoke kind of emotions. Now, through my day job of PR, I've worked with a variety of pet and pet insurance businesses, and I've just published the results of some consumer research that we've conducted over the past 3 years, actually. So I'd really love to get your viewpoint on some of the findings. So first of all, do you have pet insurance for Pip? And if so, what was your motivation in getting that?
We do have pet insurance. It's not something that we had right from the start. My brother's a vet and he's very into animal nutrition, and he believes that quite a lot of the illnesses that he treats are a result of diet, and that if you have the right diet for your dog, you will avoid a lot of illness. So he would say you should think about putting some money away each month rather than paying for insurance, and use that if and when your pet gets ill. Now, that doesn't take into account some other important things. If your dog or cat has a serious injury, then you're likely to be paying out a large amount of money to treat that. So you do need to have insurance. So the ideal thing is an excellent diet and an insurance policy that will cover you if you have some sort of major expenditure. The other thing that we're acutely aware of is that it's possible that any dog could create an issue with a third party. The dog might run into the road and cause a crash, or it might, I hate to say it, there are instances where dogs attack children and that sort of thing. So I think it's a social responsibility for you to have some sort of insurance so that you're covered, and that if anything like that happens, another person doesn't suffer as a result of what your pet might have done, accidentally, of course, but these things do happen. We do know people that have had absolutely lovely pets that have suddenly turned and done something odd. And I think that it is, as I say, socially responsible to have some sort of third-party cover anyway. I don't know whether you can get third-party pet insurance, but I would suggest that you need it for those bigger medical bills, plus to make sure that other people are looked after if there's an issue.
And interestingly, in our surveys, a third of pet parents would favour making pet insurance compulsory to make pet owners more responsible. And that kind of ties in, I guess, with what you're saying there. I mean, we have compulsory motor insurance, so I guess it's not out of the question that we should perhaps think about that at some stage.
Yes, I have some sympathy with that because, you can hurt somebody with a motor car unintentionally, and the same thing can happen with a pet. I hate to say it. Most unlikely to happen with a golden retriever, but you never know. And I think it's the right thing to do to have some sort of insurance. I don't know what the practicalities would be of making that compulsory, but I would have quite a bit of sympathy if that was proposed.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, it does mean that everybody then has that contingency that they can draw upon if the animal's sick as well, doesn't it? But then again, we have the problem that people find it hard to afford anyway. We've had the cost of living crisis, and we've also found in our survey that between 45 and 51% of people would go without food personally rather than not feed their four-legged companion. And also that 24% of people and 29% of women would sell a family heirloom, a ring, just to pay for the veterinary care. So there is all this sacrifice going on, and it's difficult for people to pay for that care without the extra burden of pet insurance and their premiums as well. So have you been aware of that sort of sacrifice going on in the community since the cost of living crisis came along?
Recently, I've been very aware of people talking about the cost of veterinary care as we just kind of chat as we go out and about. I don't know people who have, been stopping eating themselves or whatever to fund insurance or veterinary care. And I don't know people that have cancelled their insurance because of the cost. I think not having insurance is a false economy, not just for the reasons that we've discussed, but because, okay, it's a bit of money that it costs you every month. But actually, if something goes horribly wrong, you could find yourself in a situation where you're paying for x-rays or treatment, and the costs can spiral. And you really want to be covered for that, I would say. And I think you need to shop around a bit to make sure that the cover is doing what you want it to do. For example, would any pre-existing conditions that your pet has be covered? What's the situation regarding aftercare? So maybe you have a cruciate injury or something. Is physio covered after that? And if so, for how long? If something goes wrong and the pet causes some sort of third-party damage or whatever, what is the cover for that, and how does it work? And what happens if you change your insurance cover? You might be able to get a cheaper policy, but will it cover all the things that ideally you want it to cover in a worst-case scenario? In a way, the best thing is that you pay a bit each month and you never have to claim on it. That's the ideal scenario, I guess. But if you do need to claim, then you've got some support there. And, when cash is tight, it can be very difficult finding the cost of some more serious veterinary care.
Yeah, it's like with all insurance, isn't it? The devil's in the detail, and you really do need to look at the small print and understand what it's telling you, because you don't want to find out when you come to that point when you make a claim, do you? You need to know what's going to happen before you get to that stage and compare policies on that basis. But it is difficult because I think pet insurance is often bought by people independently. They're not buying it through a broker who might give them that advice. So they need to do the homework, don't they, and get the right policy.
It's maybe not the most interesting thing to do to read through the terms and conditions, but it is important if you ever have to claim. Same is true with motor insurance, of course. But yes, it's worth the investment in time just in case the worst happens.
Now, dog theft is also a really big concern for pet parents, and it's something that's been growing during the 3 years that we've been conducting our survey. With so many dogs going missing due to the actions of pet thieves, do you note a higher level of concern in your community about this issue?
I think it is a very real concern. There's an awful lot on social media about dogs that go missing. So I think there is heightened awareness. For example, we would never leave Pip sitting outside a shop when we go inside, unless he was within eyesight. But no, we wouldn't leave him on his own. And I think that sort of vigilance has become more and more important. It's always a good idea to know where your dog is and to keep an eye on them just in case they get into some trouble of their own. But you also need to be aware that there are unscrupulous people out there that might want to take a dog. I don't think we've got a major problem with Pip because he's 14 and probably not worth a lot in that sense. But over the years, yes, we have noticed that.
And do you think you're taking more precautions than you were maybe 3 years ago?
Yes, I'm sure we are. Yes.
So I have to say that I find it hugely upsetting when I see posters that are offering a reward for pets gone missing. I mean, there's some up at the moment about a dog called Bear that I see at traffic lights every time I go past them. And realistically, many pet owners just couldn't afford to put up that reward, could they? But how else are they going to try and find that dog? It's a huge problem, isn't it?
Yes, we quite often post lost dog announcements and things like that if we think there's a chance that we have followers in the area who might be able to spot an animal while they're out and about. The other thing that you can do, and it doesn't cost any money, is to contact the Lost Dogs website here in the UK. And I'm sure that there are other similar accounts as well, where they will put the message out and they've got hundreds of people that follow them. And I've seen lots of examples where dogs have been reunited with their owners, not necessarily where they've been stolen, but where, for example, they've maybe gone chasing off after a deer or after, if it's a male dog, chasing after a female dog in season and then have just disappeared. It's happened to us once with Pip, and it's just the worst feeling in the world. Fortunately, we've got his telephone number on his collar, or our telephone number on his collar, and very quickly we were reunited, and that was to do with the female dog, and we learnt very quickly the signs. So we can slip the lead on really quickly if we suddenly see that nose going into the air, the head going all alert, and he's sniffing around. We know that he's just about to take off. So yeah, you can take action. But you're right. I don't know how people would find the money for a major reward, and I don't know whether that's the way to try and get your dog back. I assume that it works in some cases, otherwise people wouldn't do it. But I would take advice from people like Animal Trust or Dogs Trust or the Lost Dog site first.
And I wouldn't even know where to begin in assessing how much the reward should be anyway. How much do you have to pay in order to get people to act? Are you just going to be inundated with people who are coming along, offering information, but it's not valid information and they're just trying to take advantage? It's very difficult. And very upsetting as well when a dog goes missing. I mean, I had a few instances of my dog that used to just love to run across the fields and spend hours running around. The number of times I've crawled through hedges to try and get him back. And he also had this great technique of, when he knew he was in trouble, developing a limp so that I would actually carry him back. to get out of trouble with my mum, I will develop this limp, I think, went through his head. So yeah, that happened on a fairly regular basis. Now, we also tried to find out what people think about the proposed 5-year prison sentence for pet theft. And around a third of pet owners don't think that 5 years is enough. And I guess we have such an emotional bond connection with our pets. It's not like a material possession that you can replace through insurance. So it's not surprising, really, is it, that people don't think that 5 years is enough?
Yeah, clearly all crime is serious. All crime is serious, and that and it's awful if you have to go through that. But a pet is a living thing. A dog is a member of your family, and if somebody steals it, to me, it's more like an abduction than a theft. And my view is that you have to have a deterrent that reflects that. So treating a dog as a an item that you might steal from a home, an inanimate item you might steal from a home, has to be wrong. You have to have a different deterrent to that.
Yeah, I think so. I personally don't think that 5 years is probably enough because, or 5 years then becomes what, 2 years, suspended sentence, whatever. So it isn't going to deter people, I don't think, if they've got that motive in mind. And I guess it's quite hard to find out who pet thieves are anyway. So, if they can get away with it, then I think more and more people will do that.
I have to say, some of the cases that you read about in the press or on social media are absolutely heartbreaking. Dogs that have been with elderly people for years and years and years suddenly disappear and nobody knows where they go. It's distressing for the person that's lost the dog, but it's equally distressing for the dog themselves who, they don't understand what's happened. They don't understand what's happened to their lifestyle or their life. So, yeah, I think you do need to have a deterrent that reflects the fact that you are taking a living animal.
I think so. And such a big part of somebody's family. Like you say, it is like kidnapping a child, isn't it? In many ways. Now, another big issue at the moment for pet owners is the fear about the rising number of dog attacks, which is concerning about 28% of pet owners overall. Is that something that's concerning you at the moment? Are you some more aware of that potential danger being out there?
I think there are two things here, actually. The first is that we are acutely aware that there are some dogs that will be aggressive with our dog. We've learnt to spot the signs and to slip the lead on very, very quickly and to get Pip out of a potentially nasty situation. And we've also learnt how to deal with it if two dogs should suddenly start to fight or whatever. He wouldn't attack another dog, but there are instances where he's been attacked. The second one is where a dog maybe attacks a human. And yes, those cases are worrying. I'm not sure how many there are in relation. They've got quite a focus in the media at the moment, and I'm not sure whether that goes a little bit too far sometimes. But I think it goes back to that need to be mindful of third parties if you have a dog and to be aware of your responsibilities. And that would extend to having the third party pet insurance as well. One thing I would say is that it's worth keeping an eye on what's going on around you. And if you see a dog approaching you that's on a lead, I think it's a common courtesy just to slip the lead onto your dog, because you don't know why that dog is on a lead. It might be that it's aggressive. It might be that actually it's got socialization problems and is scared of other dogs. It might be that the dog just runs off and, it would be not responsible to have it on the lead for that reason. But I think that is being thoughtful for other people and at the same time protecting your animal.
Yeah, quite. And we also asked people about dog walking because there's been some high profile incidents about dog walkers being attacked because they've been walking quite a few dogs at once. So we asked people whether it should be limited to maybe 2 dogs. What's your view on that? Is it possible to control more than 2 dogs at once, do you think, when you're out walking them?
We know a few dog walkers, actually, and I think that there are some that can cope with more than 2. I think it depends on what type of dogs they are and how they're behaving and how controllable they are. I have seen, and not in Tunbridge Wells, but elsewhere, I have seen dog walkers with 5 or 10 dogs, and they're wandering along looking at their mobile phones and not really paying any attention to the dogs at all. And to me, that is an issue. Those that we know, though, seem to do a really good job. So I think it's a case of knowing the dogs that you are walking and making sure that you have a small enough number to be able to cope with them all if something goes wrong.
Yeah, it is a big issue, isn't it? Because I suppose if you just introduced a new dog into that walking pack, until something happens, you might not know. So until they start to interact, I guess it's difficult to understand what the relationships between them are going to be. But yeah, I think dog walking has become such a huge business for people, hasn't it? So many people sprang, I think, particularly in the COVID time, lots of people decided to turn to dog walking as an occupation. And I guess that they want to kind of like walk as many dogs as possible. So it's striking that balance, isn't it, between safety and actually allowing them to earn the living that they want to earn. So another thing, and I guess, I've experienced this is we talked in the survey about grief and the grief that comes with the loss of a pet. And many of the people that our independent researchers talked to said that it's absolutely comparable to the loss of any other family member. And I guess that you see that a lot in your community. I mean, I see it a lot. People talking about going across the Rainbow Bridge and, their pet and the last picture of their pet. So how do your fellow dog owners that cope when it comes to that stage?
Very difficult, isn't it? Because a pet is a member of your family. In our case, Pip has grown up with our daughters, and were he no longer to be with us, it would be, a big wrench. It would be a big hole in our family life. And you can understand why it's hugely upsetting to people, particularly people, I think, who are living on their own and have developed that really close bond with their dog or cat. It must be really difficult. We've not been through that situation yet because Pip is our first dog. Yeah, we've had rabbits and guinea pigs and things like that, and that can be upsetting too. But they haven't quite got that same bond as the dog has with the family. You see it a lot on social media, and also you see it just generally out and about in the community. It can be incredibly upsetting, and it's a huge hole in your life if you lose your dog. Very difficult to say what to do. I understand that there are people that will help you with that sort of grief. Don't know that much about it, but it's something that it's possibly worth trying to find out about because, Pip being nearly 14, he's not going to be with us forever. And obviously it's going to be a big wrench when he leaves us.
Indeed. And I have to say, I really admire DJ Nicky Campbell because he lost his dog. And I think he's been very open about his grief and spoken about it in a way that I think a lot of people perhaps hide from and don't feel comfortable about talking about. So I think he's done a really good job there in showing people that it's all right to feel that grief about a pet and, to actually, it is better to talk about it and express that than to bottle everything up and make it, compound the issue. So I do admire him for that. And like you say, it is such a difficult time because they have been with you. And often they're the person that you can talk to about anything, aren't they, your dog? In some ways you can talk to your dog more about things than you can to other people. So when you lose that and don't have them there, it is very difficult.
I think what he did is very important, actually, because having somebody that's that high profile means that the issue gets a lot of awareness. And for somebody like that to start talking in that way about their pet, their dog, a lot of people who've never had a dog or a cat would never understand and might think that he's, being unnecessarily dramatic or whatever it is. But for those that have had dogs, you understand where he's coming from. And it's very valuable that he talks about it and shares his thoughts and emotions.
Yeah, I agree. Right, so going back to Pip, what are his plans for his adventures this summer?
That's a good question. I should think that we will be down on the Isle of Purbeck at least once across the summer. So he will be up on the downs, on the beaches, walking around the countryside. Corfe Castle is a favourite place that we visit, and years ago he would walk to the top of the steep mound that the castle is on. He can't quite manage that, but you can tell that he knows the place and he just absolutely loves visiting it. So I should think that will be one place we will visit.
So
we'll also be in Bristol at some stage as well, and he's got to know the area around the Clifton Suspension Bridge quite well. And there's a marvellous dog shop there, which he's visited, and lots of dog-friendly cafes and things. So that'll be another visit.
Well, I do love that area around Bristol because I used to live there. So Yeah, I know that well. I don't think there was a dog shop there when I was there, but yeah, it is a glorious place to be, isn't it? I used to drive under the suspension bridge every morning going to work. So that view is absolutely spectacular, isn't it?
Well, in Clifton Village, there's now a place called, I think it's called the Dog Shop, and it it has everything that you would associate with dogs. And you can stop there for a coffee as well, or a piece of cake or whatever. So, yes, that's a great place to visit.
Mm. All right. I'll have to head there. Yeah. So now, do you think that Pip realizes that he's got such a social media following? And is he a natural when the camera comes out?
I think he's blissfully unaware. Whether he realizes that people stop him in the street from time to time and get very friendly with him, I don't know. He loves having his picture taken, usually. But if he doesn't want it taken, he'll let you know and he'll just wander off. I think he likes the attention, and he knows what to do. You know, if the iPhone comes out, then he'll sort of sit down and smile and start interacting with it. So yeah, I think he quite enjoys it.
Wow. You've reminded me there about my days having to take photographs of an Everton footballer who, when he was in the mood, was fantastic, but you soon knew if he didn't want to interact. So, finally, Brian, what's the best thing about your golden retriever journey, and what's the next destination for that journey?
I guess it's the whole thing about living with dogs, really. We didn't have a dog before. This Pip is our first dog, so it's been a voyage of discovery, if you like. He's grown up with our daughters, and it's been wonderful watching them interact and growing up together. Also, the people that you meet along the way. We've made so many friends, both in the social media sense, but also locally. Particularly amongst Instagram users, actually. A lot of them are based very locally to us. So we do tend to run into people from time to time. The other thing is that I've developed it into an interest, and I'm now working with the Golden Retriever channel in the United States to put together a podcast, which we're aiming to launch later in the year. That's going to be called Dogs Unleashed. So that's the next stage in our journey. So look out for that. We'll be talking about it on Instagram and on Twitter. So yeah, we're aiming to release that this autumn.
Right. Oh, that's something to look out for then, isn't it? That sounds like it'd be great. And what's it going to discuss? What's the subject matter going to be?
Literally everything about living with dogs. We've done a series of Twitter spaces maybe 9 months ago, something like that. Got a lot of people listening. And we were talking about things from, so you want to get a puppy? What have you got to think about? Am I suitable to be a dog owner? I'm having behavioral problems with my dog. What do I do about it? I'm going on holiday. How do I prepare to take my dog with me? What do we need to take? What preparations should we do in terms of where we're going and finding dog-friendly hotels, restaurants, places to go? Thinking ahead, do I need to be aware of a vet before I take my dog on holiday? Just the whole range of things. And I guess we'll get to that piece around how do I cope with the grief of losing a dog as well.
Mm. Well, it sounds like it's going to be a really valuable resource for people then. And worldwide, if you're linking up with these people in America, I guess you can sort of embrace what happens with dog ownership in America as well as in the UK.
Yeah, there's a lot of common things, but there are differences as well. Differences in legislation, differences in vet practice or what vets will tell you. So it's going to be very interesting. We had a great response to the first series of programs that we did, so we're really looking forward to getting to know a whole load of new people, and not just producing a podcast for golden retrievers, but for everybody that's got a dog. And it's, as I say, it's going to be called Dogs Unleashed, and we're looking to release it this autumn.
Right. Well, we should all listen out for that then. Yeah. Maybe one day I'll get back into dog ownership, but the grief journey was very painful. So I've never really got over that. And also I don't have time, and I don't have that time to commit to looking after it. I would be on the road and not able to be at home with the dog. So it wouldn't be fair. But one day I might, when I hang up my boots at Catapult PR, a dog might be the first thing that comes along.
Well, we'll look forward to that.
Well, thank you very much, Brian. That's been fantastic. Thank you for talking to us about Pip, and do give him a hug from us.
Of course.
Now, I bet you can't wait to follow Pip and his adventures on social media. So why not head to X or Instagram and do that? If you're using X, you'll probably see me interacting with him on a fairly regular basis. Perhaps one day we'll actually meet in person. Do check out other dog-related podcasts from Poodling Around, such as our insight into a dog-friendly medieval English castle. Do also download the research survey to which I referred, which has great insight into the opinions of UK pet parents and their views of dog-related topics and pet insurance. It's available at catapultpr.co.uk in the download section, which you'll find under the About tab. Or you can get it from the PR for Pet Brands page. On the latter, we also have a video of singing dogs. It's a little out of date now in terms of how many awards we've won, but it's still good fun. I just wish the video makers had set the story to a Guns N' Roses track. On that note, I still haven't achieved the wish that I made in Bremen, but maybe one day. In the meantime, I shall enjoy the tranquility that comes from spotting Pip's social media posts on Twitter. I'm sorry, but I just really can't get used to calling it X. Until the next time, take really great care of yourself, whether you are in Thousand Oaks or the 100-acre wood. And remember, as I always tell you, that life is much more fun when you are poodling around.